Inpatient, outpatient, holistic healing didn't work. Returned home from an inpatient treatment center. The next day, on my way to an AA meeting, I stopped at a liquor store. And in the parking lot, I made a plan to end it all. So I went home, went down to my basement, and tried to take my own life. As I was fading out, I had a vision. It was a person in front of me. The mouth was not moving, but I could hear the voice, and I could hear it from the inside. And it said, "You have a purpose."
All right, what's going on, everybody? That was tonight's guest, Melissa Gissy-Witherspoon. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Let's bring in Melissa. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, guys.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here and connect with all of you guys. I'm really, really excited. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had a great time before the show. We were having fun trying to get the camera in the right spot, and I was giving her shit, and she was not understanding why. And then there's two cameras. You'll see there's two cameras tonight, and Melissa was having quite a good time with the two cameras.
I'm always entertaining myself and whoever else wants to listen in.
Is there anything that you'd like to say before we jump in tonight?
I'd just like to thank you, Hard Knox Talks, for all of the work that you do, putting into providing a place of unity for everybody in the recovery community to come and learn a little bit about each other and have, a fun environment to be together. We talk about it all the time, that connection is so important in recovery, and you provide it, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. So thank you.
You're very welcome. We would be nothing if not for our community. So this is not mine. This is certainly ours. So anyways, having said that, let's go.
This is Hard Knox Talks.
Okay, before we dive in, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is sponsored in part by the Elizabeth Fry Society of Saskatchewan, helping women before, during, and after incarceration, Prairie Harm Reduction, emphasizing local action with national impact, and Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Moms Stop the Harm. To learn more about all our sponsors, check out www.hardknoxtalks.com. So, Melissa, tell us what it was like growing up. Did you grow up around a lot of substance use, or what does that look like for you?
I mean, I did. I was born in 75. So, I grew up in an era where people were still smoking a lot in public, and there was drinking. Things looked a lot different back then than they do now, and so things were normal. It was normal to have, in my world, in my life anyway, there was alcohol just about anywhere. There was, even at church, there was heavy drinking. So it was around, but it really wasn't until my late teen years, and then definitely into my 20s and 30s, that my addiction really just went haywire. So I grew up in a nice home. I had a great childhood. I had a mom and dad. I'm not going to qualify anybody in my family as alcoholics or drug addicts. That they can come out. They can do that if they want to do that. I was exposed to a lot of situations and stuff, but nothing that I would say was abnormal for the area that I grew up in. I had loving parents. I have an older sister. We're still best of friends. I have a younger brother. He's still a pain in the ass. Love you, Matt. I had a good childhood. I was awkward. Here comes the story that you've heard 100,000 times before. We're no different from each other. All of us have such similar stories. I was very awkward. I still am.
Me too.
And
awkward.
Yeah, and I am. I'm a weirdo. And every time I tried to embrace that or try to be something else, to not be the weirdo, it just got even more weird. So I never really found my place until I was in my late teens, and I met a group of boys, and they were so cool. They were older than me. I hope one of them may be watching right now. He's been following my page recently. But
Hmm.
they're really cool guys, and they did fun stuff. Like they went camping, and they I don't know, they did all they built engines and cars. Like I learned
Hmm.
about metal car, like heavy metal cars, there was drag racing strips, and I could go do that with them. They let me into their little group, so I was just one of the guys, and I loved it. And they didn't really, not that I'm aware of, they never did anything that made led me to believe that they had any interest in anything other than they just thought I was cool, and
Mm.
they made me like their little sister. They kind of looked out for me. But somewhere along the line drugs got introduced. So there was a core group, and then people kind of weave in and out, and it just started off with stuff like we'd smoke some pot and that kind of stuff. And then it got heavier and heavier. We did, like, we got into cocaine, then they introduced crack, and like, so there's all kinds of stuff where I was being exposed to before I was, I think, 17. Yeah.
Hmm.
So somewhere along the line with that group of boys, they kind of dissipated,
Hmm.
and they had introduced me to a level of drug dealers. There's the different levels. You got the one, there's, I don't really know how it works because I was never the drug dealer. I just hung out with them, but there's all different levels. Okay. And so the ones that were giving us the stuff, we ended up, they got us to sell it. And
Hmm.
then we met the next level guys. And so my original group of guys kind of disappeared and went on their way or whatever. And then I ended up with like some of the main drug dealers in Atlanta. And that's where things turned pretty bad pretty fast.
That
So
escalated quickly.
very quickly,
Hmm.
like quickly, I would say within a year. And I was along for the ride. I
Hmm.
mean, I loved it. I was living the fast life. I was like, my parents were Catholic. We went to church. Like I had a normal, like I was in the suburbs. I was very vanilla. I had
Hmm.
HBO, and I would stay up late at night and sneak and watch, like, I
That's
don't
like
know,
a that's
movies and stuff.
like a level of like hierarchy. If like you have HBO, you're like you kind of made it or what?
Yeah, no, it's that was my only exposure to like cuss words and drugs and
Oh, okay,
like
okay.
boobs.
Yeah.
I was like, that's how I figured some stuff out, was watching that stuff, because that kind of stuff wasn't talked about in my house. My mom was like a
Mm.
nun. Okay, so,
Hmm.
my mom and dad were high school sweethearts. I didn't come from a lifestyle of fast and all of that, but I sure found it, and I loved it. I was VIP at clubs. I had a fake ID,
Hmm.
hanging out at strip clubs. We would go down to do drug runs and go down to Fort Lauderdale and to Miami from Atlanta, and they would give us these cars, probably stolen, to go down in, and we just had the time of our life. I dropped out of high school,
Hmm.
and I just didn't have any responsibility. So I ended up becoming a runaway. Like my parents tried. I think they were kind of spun around in a whirlwind. Like, what just happened? Where's our daughter? Like, how did they didn't understand because they've never experienced that life, right? But they're like, how did this happen? And I was mad at them because every time I would want to do these things, they would try and hold me back from it. And so I was
Hmm.
like, go screw yourself. I'm out of here. And I ran for it. And so I was homeless, kind of jumping from house to house. And I was cute. I was a pretty little girl. I had started coming into my own, and
Hmm.
so that I learned quickly on that could get me. I could get stuff that way. I could get a free place to stay, or I didn't have to pay for drugs, or I could get in the front of the line at a club. So I started staying with these drug dealers, and then it wasn't very long, maybe within a couple of weeks, I wasn't able to leave, and I was held there. And I talk about it more in my book. Unlike the guys that I originally started hanging out with, these drug dealers had the intention for human trafficking. And so I became a victim of that. And fortunately for me, I was not in that situation for very long. There was a raid, there was a drug bust. They had contacted my parents and said that they knew where I was and that they had planned on rescuing me. And so they did. And shortly after that, I went home. This is where my seed of addiction was planted. It wasn't, I didn't understand like the heavy stuff until I was at the point where I'm talking about when I was with this group of
Yeah.
guys and then on,
Yeah.
that's why my parents were their heads were spinning with like, why is our daughter acting like this? We don't get
Yeah.
it. Cocaine and crack and, um, heavy drugs and stuff
Yeah.
like that. That's not that wasn't really anything that our family was accustomed to dealing with. Was there a lot of drinking, and are there people that could qualify as alcoholics? I don't know. They got to write a memoir. That's where I am with that.
So when you first came into contact with these substances, what was it like for you? Were you like were you nervous, or
I
was
loved
it like
it.
was you like just give me all the drugs like right away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like yum 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 yum. Yes.
Uh-huh.
I loved it.
Where do you
I
think that
loved
came
it,
from?
and I don't know. Probably I have no idea. I've actually never thought about it before. I'll have to dig into that a little bit. I loved it. And not only did I love it, I loved how maybe this is it. That's a good question. Maybe this is it. I loved how I could do just as much, if not more, better than the guys around me.
I think Donna's got something.
Yeah.
She's sitting over here. She's like, yeah, I get that.
I get that completely.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious, like when it was initially presented to you, was there any fear? Like, and why I'm asking this
No.
question is because I often, think back to like the Just Say No campaign and This Is Your Brain on Drugs
Oh yeah.
campaign and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like, did you buy into that stuff at all? Or was it just like, man, that's bullshit. I'm going to do this anyways because of
Yeah,
maybe
no,
people
it's
around you were?
bullshit. I'm gonna do it anyway. Yeah,
Mhm.
no, listen, I was prime age for the Just Say No, the Reagan. I'm like they were pounding it into us left and right. There was a commercial with an egg in a frying
Oh yeah,
pan.
we
This
had
is
that
your
up here
brain
too.
on
Yeah, oh yeah.
drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it didn't matter. Like where I felt so good about the choices that I was making doing that. And once I started doing it, it was so fast and so strong. And I was so good at whatever this lifestyle it was that I all of a sudden was in. And my mind, I was so good at it that I had no regrets at the time, even to the point when I had gotten myself into the situation with the drug dealers. It didn't, and it never crossed my mind that I wish I would have, not run away. I wish I had. It was more of a mentality of like, how am I going to survive this? What do I do next? What's my plan of action? And then once I was rescued, how am I going to cover this up, make it go away, and never talk about it again? Which is exactly what I did.
So you're coming home now. You came home to your parents' house
Yeah.
after all of these things went wrong. From what you just told me, it sounds like you were still like, none of this is my fault. I've got this. I'm in control.
When you are a victim of physical and sexual abuse, which is what happened to me when I was in that condo on Powers Ferry Road, I write about it. I went into a protective mode. So my denial was a form of protection of what happened, and I tucked it away so deep that it wasn't even until maybe 20 years later that I realized that that was the actual thing that was still eating me alive. But then by then, I had 2 decades of alcohol and drug use that had choices and circumstances piled onto it. So recovery was a lot of work for me, because from 17 to 40 something, I had abused people, drugs, alcohol. And so it was a a long road. But that was the turning point for me, because I didn't want to ever deal with that pain of that. And I took responsibility for it. Like at some point I was like, well, you did this to yourself. That's what you get. Nobody needs to know. It's not, we're not going to talk about this. You can be anything that you want to be. And I would just try and reinvent myself. And pretty much every 4 to 6 years, I reinvented myself.
What did your parents have to say when you came home that first time?
So my dad never knew about the extent of what happened. My mom did, but she didn't know to the level that my counselors and people that I've actually opened up and did some healing with know about. She knew that things had happened. I believe the police, probably a detective, probably told her some stuff and helped her get in touch with counseling. And she took me to counseling. And I kind of faked it through it. I would go to counseling because I knew that's what I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't want to talk about it. It didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I had already sealed it away. The mind is a powerful thing. So you tuck something away and it didn't happen. Why am I going to sit in front of some stranger and talk about what didn't happen? So I would go in and I would give them a hard time, and I would be a little smart ass, and I would work my way through the meeting. One of the counselors actually said, you're wasting my time. I don't even think you belong here. And I was like, well, you're just like everybody else in society who says I'm not worth anything or I'm not good enough. So that's why I didn't open up to you. You know what I mean? Like I would work myself into these conversations with these people where they were the bad guy, and it would close me off even more. And I'd go to my mom and I'd say, thanks for the counseling, Mom. It was helpful. I'm doing better now.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't, because I wasn't taking care of anything.
Were you
except for
self-sabotaging just to get out of it?
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I did that in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I think we all
Yeah.
do that from a certain extent. What were you doing for work this whole time? Were you building a career along this time,
Yeah.
or what was? Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I was in the bar and restaurant industry. That was a perfect place to fuel my addictions and be up all night and sleep all day and have that be acceptable, because I was making money doing it, right? Then eventually I met my first husband. I got pregnant and we got married, and I decided he was still in college. I decided I needed a way to provide for our family. I needed health insurance. I needed something more stable. Than I didn't want to be 9 months pregnant with no way to have a baby or take care of the baby. So my idea was to go into property management. I was a high school dropout I've obtained my GED now, but back then I didn't have more than a 10th grade level education. And so I got a job as leasing apartments. I could get us a free place to stay. I'd just have to sell some apartments, and man, I could sell anything to anybody. Right. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be the number one leasing agent in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to have a free apartment. I'm going to have all these commissions. And we're going to have health insurance, and it's going to be a great life. And that's what I did. I did exactly what I just said. And I was super successful. People are like, who's this girl? Where'd she come from? How does she, and I made a name for myself in the property management industry.
What was it that brought you into recovery? Let's talk about that.
I think I mentioned earlier, I had like a cycle of like 4 to 6 years. I would bottom, and then I would rebuild my life. I became very good at rebuilding. And then I would kind of like plateau out, and then I would bottom out, and then I would run. What do they call that? Fight,
Fight or
flight,
flight.
freeze, whatever.
Fight,
I'm a
flight, or
runner.
freeze.
Yeah. So I'm a runner. I mean, I still am. I have to tell myself all the time, like, no, you cannot run away from this. You got to face it, Melissa. Like, that's my daily pep talk. No, deal with this. Because I'll run in a heartbeat. So I would run. I left houses, and these are houses like I worked hard for. Like, I wasn't like a kept woman. Like I worked, and I got these homes, and I would fill them full of nice things, and I would have kids, and I would get married, and then something wouldn't go right, and I would get, secretly be drinking and doing drugs and going to work to my property management career with my wine in my coffee mug, and then I would mess up and bottom out, and then I would do it all over again. So this is choices and circumstances from those choices, over and over and over again for decades. So I met my current husband, Derek. I write about him in the book. And he was different. He just saw something in me that other people didn't, and he didn't put up with my shit. You know what I mean? He At first he kind of did enable my behaviors, and I was like, oh, I picked another perfect one. I'll get
Mhm.
away with this for a while. But he didn't.
He caught on.
He caught on. He caught on quickly. He rarely drinks, or I don't know that he's ever really done drugs. And he just had a good head on his shoulders. And for some reason, he saw something in me that others did not. And so he fought hard for me. And he tolerated a lot of stuff until he could wrap his head around it and figure out what to do. So people can't wrap their head around what it is that this Melissa character brings, right? And then they usually just discard me, or I run away first before you can throw me to the side. He didn't do that. And so it kind of freaked me out. And I was like, I got to figure this out. I got to get this right. I think this guy actually loves me. I had no clue what love was. No
Mhm.
clue. And so I was in and out of treatment centers. I gotten pregnant with I have 4 children. I got pregnant with my youngest son, and I had a really bad postpartum depression, and they prescribed me Xanax. And it wasn't long after they prescribed me that I was abusing them. I think I say in my book, I was popping them like they were Tic Tac breath mints.
Was there ever any questions about prior history with substances, or were they just like, here you
No,
go?
nope, no,
Huh.
not at all. Yeah, they sure
Were
did.
you were
There
you
was a
worried? Like when they gave them
Yeah.
to you and you took one, you're like, oh, this is all right. Were you like, oh shit, here we
Yeah,
go?
yeah, because I didn't understand what benzodiazepine was. I didn't. I knew that it was the new modern housewives feel good, fix all
Mommy wine
magic
culture.
pill. Everybody, yeah, I was right in the middle of it. I was right in
Hmm.
the middle of mommy wine culture, and I didn't understand how dangerous that they really are. Once I got into them, it was like there was no stopping it. It was a
Hmm.
train wreck. And so I ended up going to inpatient treatment facility, and I really thought I had gotten it straight this time. I thought that I was going to get out and I was going to have a good fresh start. And I hadn't quite bottomed out like I had in the past. I hadn't lost all my family. Um, and it didn't happen like that. As soon as I got out, there was a period, I was a habitual violator. So I had accumulated multiple DUIs, multiple. Like I think I had 6, and 6 total, but at like 4 within like a 2-month period. And so I a 30-day treatment facility just wasn't going to take care of it. It wasn't going to quote unquote fix me. I had never tapped down into that stuff that we talked about, the abuse and any of the layers of stuff that I had piled on top of that. There wasn't enough time for that. So as soon as I got out of this inpatient program, I was supposed to go to AA the next day, and I couldn't make it there. I passed right by the Sherlock's liquor store that I frequented, and I just, it's like my car was on autopilot. I pulled in and
Hmm.
went in and got my little airplane bottles of vodka, and sat in the parking lot and just downed them one after the other. And I looked right in the rearview mirror. Every time I think about it, because I get choked up because I can see it, I remember looking at myself and saying, you're going to die from this, and you're going to take the rest of what you have left down with you. Why are you doing? I could hear myself saying, why are you doing this to the people that you love? End it. Just go end it. Don't make this drunk. You don't make this a long death. Just go fix it now. And so I did. I went straight home, and that's when I tried to take my own life. I went down to the basement of our house, the unfinished basement of our house, and tried to commit suicide. I can still like remember it like it was yesterday. It was almost 10 years ago. But what happened was, as I was fading in and out, I was praying to God, like, just take me. Like, what are you waiting on? Why is it taking so long for me to die? I'm Catholic. I pray to Mary. I was begging her, please take me. I'm done. And I looked up. I was fading in and out, and I looked up, and I saw a figure in front of me, and it was the most beautiful experience that I have ever felt in my entire life. The figure was telling me, you have a purpose. That's why you're not going. You have work to do. You have to get yourself well. You have to take care of yourself so you can go and help others that need your help. It was plain as day. People think, well, you were like on a lot of medication, you were drunk, you were down in your basement, you slit your wrist, you're fading in and out. Maybe I was smoking cigarettes left and right, maybe it was the smoke from the cigarettes. It was right in front of me. The mouth did not move, but I could hear it. And I could hear it not in the way that you and I are talking right now. I could hear it inside of me. And I had the biggest hug. That's the only way, an inside out hug. It's the best way that I can describe it. I was hugged from the inside out. And I felt like right at that moment that a miracle had happened. And shortly after that, my husband, who was supposed to be gone for some time, that's why I planned it the way that I did, came home. He smelled the cigarettes smoke in the basement. He came home, and I was quickly after that, I was off to a long-term dual diagnosis treatment facility where I could really get some good help to tackle some of the things that were lying underneath the addiction.
We got a pile of comments coming in here in support. We're gonna look at a few.
Whew.
You're doing great, my friend.
You're doing great, Melissa. Stephanie Childress, we'll start down here. Thanks for your comment. She says, I can relate about the abuse. It took me over 20 years to face it. Gareth Moxie, thanks for your comment. Gareth says, thanks for sharing it with us. And Chris Melachar, thanks for your comment. Chris says, love you, friend. Hugs. And Dustin Hauk, thanks for your comment, says, I love you so much, Melissa. Thank you for being such a huge inspiration and integral part of my recovery.
I love you, Dustin.
So Twinkle's question was there anything your parents could have done to help you want to give up using or drinking, etc.? Or was that something you had to do for yourself?
I don't know how to answer that, because it would have meant that I would have had to have like a whole different set of parents who had a whole different knowledge about a whole different situation. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have so much acceptance with my parents did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had in the day and age that this happened in. They tried relentlessly to reach me. I was not reachable. And certainly after the experience in the condo at Powers Ferry Road, nobody was going to reach me. And so I have a lot of regret, and I constantly work through the pain that I've caused other people, especially, my loved ones and my children, my 4 children.
How old were they at the time of your attempt?
Jake would have been 2, and then Caroline, like right around 8, 9. She was under 10. So Haley was like, I don't know, 12, and Tyler he wasn't quite 16. He wasn't driving yet when I was at rehab, because I remember they had to bring him up there. Yeah. I don't know. I understand the question that you're asking, Twinkle, and it's a good one, because I have done that question for myself, and I've heard other people ask that question, kind of try and work through that a lot throughout my recovery. But I have so much acceptance with this is what it is. And what do we do now? My dad died, and I write about it in my book, chapter 4. It's where my spiritual awakening began. I was a year sober before I actually started doing the work to connect it with anything spiritually or work the steps. I didn't
Mhm.
dive right into the step work. And so my dad's passing and making my first amends with anybody was with him on his deathbed. And the experience gave me a lot of closure just right in that very moment. I talked to him like he's still here. Daniel, at the beginning, before we went live, didn't I say I can hear my dad's voice right now
You
fussing
did.
at me for messing with something? Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I carry him with me. That's what I believe, that he's here and he's proud of me and he can see. I feel like his death pushed me into what it is that I'm doing with Sober Now and with writing. Sometimes I think gifts are given once you go to the other side. That's what I believe.
Mhm.
And so my mom has Alzheimer's, and I did publish the book and write the book prior to her getting to a point where it's not really like a sit down, have deep conversations with her anymore. That time has passed. So I feel like we got to have some important conversations before that. So I have acceptance. That's a long answer, Twinkle, but that's my authentic answer.
Yeah.
I don't see it any other way because that's the way it was.
What was it like leaving the treatment center? Like you went in there, had you found a level of surrender when you walked through those doors, or did it take you some time and some programming to find that space where you could accept that things needed to change?
No, I there was it's I'm stubborn. I'm a stubborn pain in the my
You are
big
in
head is
good
also
company,
a
my
hard
friend.
head. Yeah, I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn. And now I've got boogers because I was crying. I'm so sorry. So
Well, now the
yeah,
people in the audio will know that too. Otherwise, they
oh,
wouldn't have.
okay, good. Great. So I just sharing's caring. So yeah, the surrender, like I said, I think really I was in survival mode. I didn't want I after you see something like I witnessed on the floor of my basement, like I I didn't want to challenge that. You guys,
Mm,
this ain't some cartoon or made up show. Like this is the real deal. I know what I saw. I don't. Either you're convinced by what I'm telling you or not. It was real, and it
mhm,
enough that it still moves me when I talk about it,
mhm,
and it scared me. It scared me because I recognized that there was something greater than myself that I was going to have to answer to. And so I better start investigating that. I didn't know what the heck that was. I didn't know how
mhm,
the heck I was going to do that, but I knew I couldn't do it laying on the floor of my basement or hiding in the closet, popping bottles or pills. I had to go away and be somewhere safe and have somebody kind of coach me or give me some tools to figure out how to do that. And so that's what I did.
mhm.
When I was in rehab, my daughter was taken from me. Caroline, I write about her in the book. She was taken from me. So I had that experience while I was in recovery. I mean, in rehab. I had a phone call that my dad was going to die pancreatic cancer maybe before I was able to get out. I was facing 2 years in prison for being a habitual violator. My husband wanted to take my younger son and leave and go to North Carolina, which is where he went, but I came with him. I'm here now.
Mhm.
So I had a lot of stuff to face. I wrote about that too. Like, not everybody's going to have that pink cloud of recovery you hear about. I had a lot of digging a hole to dig myself out of. And it maybe that's why my spiritual awakening didn't happen until a year or so into my recovery, because I was just so busy with a spreadsheet of stuff to do. And I mean, you want to talk about rigorous work. It was hard work, and
Yeah.
it was from sun up to sundown. So I was terrified. I was terrified to leave recovery and go back. The recovery world, the rehab was my bubble, a safe
Yeah.
place, and I had to
I
go
can relate
back
to
into
that.
all that mess. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
my husband, who's not wasn't in recovery, so he just didn't understand. Maybe sometimes still doesn't fully get it the way that we do. He had all these resentments and stuff. I had to walk back into that. It was terrifying. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was scary, but
So
I did it.
tell us about your spiritual awakening. And like so you talked you mentioned before your 12 stepper. Did the 12
Yeah.
steps have something to do with your spiritual awakening?
It did because Because by the time that my dad was on his deathbed, taking his last breaths, and I was making an amends with him, or trying my best to make my first amends, because I didn't really know what I was doing at that point. I had come to believe that God was a real thing. Like, I accepted God as my higher power. When I first came out of rehab, I just still didn't really know. I was talking I was talking at him, not to him.
Mm.
Like, this is what I'm sober. This is what I get. Like, I was fussing at my
Ma-
higher power. Like,
Making deals.
I don't know that I was making deals anymore, but I was like, come on. Like, where's the payoff? Because I wanted that instant
Mm.
gratification.
So
I
you
was
thought
doing
you
what I
were
was supposed to
God.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
was. No, really, it's sad
Mhm.
because I still was not outside of my own self yet. I had
Yeah.
not accepted that there was somebody greater than me. So I was still calling the shots. And he's
Mhm.
like shaking his head, like, no, girl, you're going to have to bottom out again. Let's do
Yeah.
this. No, but so I think like, I think there was a situation when my dad was dying that happened that showed me. I like how my relationship with God, he knows what I need to get my attention. It's really cool. And I know I like where I'm practicing communicating with him enough that I'm at a point that I recognize it a lot sooner when he's doing that for me. So I don't
Mhm.
have to play this whole manipulative game that I used to in the past. I can be like, oh, okay, you want me to do this? And I will follow you. Let me give it a
Mhm.
try, even though it makes absolutely no sense. You're God. I'll do it. So,
You don't
but
critique his way anymore?
sometimes I didn't want to write a
Sometimes?
book.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't want to write a
Okay.
book.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was like, you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Go find somebody that has an
You told
education.
God he was crazy.
Yeah, I was like, you got the wrong one. I
Yeah.
did. I was like, I'm not. I would turn my head, and he'd be like, you're writing a book. I'd be like, no, I'm not. And then
Yeah.
another person would tap on my shoulder and say, you should write a book. And I'm like, no, I should
Mhm.
not. Like, I was still,
Mhm.
yeah, even then, at like 6, 7 years in, I was still arguing. But there was a moment with my dad on his deathbed where there was an exchange of using knowledge from my past behaviors, old addict behaviors. I had known something about morphine and where to place it in his mouth that it would bring him instant relief, where he was at a point where he couldn't really swallow water or anything anymore, but he was in pain. And I was in a DUI court program where I was being drug tested, and I shouldn't have been anywhere near it, but it was just instinctive to get it and to put it where it needed to go. And I realized at that moment that I was bringing him comfort and helping, like, assisting with easing him into his transition to, to his next place. That I could use mistakes and behaviors from my past to do for good instead of bad. And so that that's when it made sense what was told to me on the basement floor.
Mm.
That was the first sign that I was on the right track. So it kind of propelled me forward, and then it was nonstop from there. I was all in. I wanted
Mm.
to know what was next and what had signed me up. What do I have to do?
So
Yeah.
when you're talking about using your past experiences for good, do you ever wonder if maybe God walked you through some of those experiences so that you could move forward and help others?
Yeah, Daniel, people ask me that often, and you hear sometimes you have to go through hell to have the experience to bring other people out of it. Or there's that meme everybody uses about bringing and coming out and
Buckets of
carrying
water. Yeah, yeah. Oh
water
yeah.
for people.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That meme. Yes, yes.
I don't know how that all works.
Mhm.
I don't know. I wish I did. I'm a know-it-all. I'd like to say that's exactly why that happened. I have a hard time doing that though, because I do believe that a lot of my life and where I was led to was not by God. It was by my own free will.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't
Mm.
believe God designed me to suffer
Mhm.
and have some of the things done to me. That's not who I believe he is. I believe those things, those choices and circumstances were created by me. I believe that everybody has a purpose and they have gifts. You are very talented in the things that you do. You're very creative, right?
Mm.
Evidently, I'm a writer. People read
Mhm.
it. You would never guess by looking at me, but there's something about the way that the words flow when I put pen to paper,
I
and
think you
it's
look
a
like a writer.
gift.
You look like a writer.
Oh, okay.
What do you think, Donna?
Well, you know,
I agree.
I
Mhm.
hope so, because I am now. But you know what I mean? Like, so that is a gift that I
Mhm.
have. I said, oh my gosh, even I like that. I have no, and then somebody can sing a tune. I can't sing to save my life. I do it in the shower and I do it in the car as loud as I can, but it's not my gift, you know? So I think we all have these different gifts where we're able to connect and shift and be together and work as a whole, as one. I think that I believe in that design, but I don't believe that things were done bad to me so I could help others out of
Mhm.
bad. I think I made bad choices. I think I was sick. I think that a lot of people around me didn't have the knowledge that we have these days, or that we do have now. And I think that I have some gift within me that is deemed fit to help other people that are
Mhm.
struggling and challenged with things, and I'm allowed to be a part of doing that. And it's beautiful to me. I love
Mhm.
it.
You know what
I
I think?
love it.
There's a saying that has always resonated with me. It goes, "In God's hands, our dark past can become our greatest asset."
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So,
It's true.
so
That's
let's look at some
beautiful.
let's look at some comments.
Okay.
Jeffrey Meehan, thank you for your comment. Says, love you, Missy. Glad you didn't go away that day. And our friend Barb Forensler says, thank you, or should I say, from Barb.
From Barb. It's Barb.
It's a long running joke. I'm sure you're aware since you watch,
Yeah.
but she says, thank you for sharing your story. Your strength is amazing.
Hmm.
And Stephanie
Aw.
Childress says, you are such a beautiful woman. You have touched my heart tonight. And
Aw,
Stronger Than
I love
Pain.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. And Stronger Than Pain says, Hard Knocks Talks is bringing hearts and voices to light. I was drawn here. God did that.
Hmm.
Aw, that's wonderful. I love
Hmm.
you guys.
Hmm.
I love all of y'all. I really do. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm telling you, on my page all the time, people are like, thank you for sharing, or thank you for that message. I think we made a joke earlier on the intro about like how I do brush my teeth in the morning and I get these random thoughts and I hear that voice.
Yeah.
You need to share this with somebody needs to hear it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'll get in the car before I go into work and I'll share the story. And then people say thank you. But like for me, the connection, it's everything to me.
Hmm.
I don't want to be alone. I don't want to do this alone. I had a really lonely life. Connecting with all of you guys and sharing hope with each other is the most amazing thing. I feel like
Hmm.
every day I won the lottery. Every time I talk to somebody or hear a story or connect, it's the best thing.
Yeah. Well, I think we're coming to the end here, but would there be anything that you would like to leave us with tonight? Maybe there's something that you would like to say if there's someone out there struggling.
Yeah, I do want to tell. I don't know who you are. I know you can see me or you can hear me. And this message is for you. Don't give up. I know that something's whispering in your ear to end it, and that there's nothing left to fight for. It's a lie. Don't listen to it. Don't believe it. You are a beautiful soul. You have every right to be here on this earth, to be loved and to share love with others. And I want you to know you have a purpose too. I don't know where you are, who you are. I can't wait to meet you one day, but take this message to heart. Know that you are loved and you are not alone. We do recover. So keep going.
You are an author. Tell everybody
I
the name.
am.
Tell everybody the name of your book.
The book is I'm Sober, So Now What? A Journey of Hope and Healing. And it
Okay.
is the first book in a series of books.
Mm.
So there will be more to follow.
Okay.
I actually I'm just relaunched it this week. It was published last year, and I pulled it maybe end of November because I had a moment of clarity with it that I wanted to self-publish. So I'm so backwards, right? Most people self-publish and then they hope to get published by somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than cling to that ego kind of motivated thing, it's more about the book was written for the recovery community and it's
Mm-hmm.
to share hope. And I realized that if I could self-publish it, then the proceeds that were kind of going to the middleman, to the publishing house, could actually go back into an initiative to give back to supporting nonprofits and other places in recovery. Like right now, I think our biggest contribution recently was to prison ministry. We were able to supply some recovery Bibles and some copies of my book. And
Hmm.
so it's picking up speed and I'm excited about it.
Awesome. So,
Also, we were able to add more content. Like I didn't like when people closed the pages to the book. That's all they got. I wanted them to have some places to go online and some resources like Hard Knocks Talk and kind of keep their momentum going. You know, I've got them opened up and thinking about things, but I want them to have something else until my next book publishes.
so is it a memoir, so to speak? Does it talk about your personal experiences?
It does. I don't think it really classifies as a memoir because I wrote
Mm-hmm.
it in a way where, of course, I have to qualify who I am. I can't just tell you things about recovery without sharing my own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do, right? So it does very much start off as here's who I am. This is what it looked like. Here's how I started climbing my way out. But all throughout it, I purposefully wrote it weaving information about what recovery could look like from different perspectives. You know, I'm a 12 stepper, but that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that I believe that that's everybody's path. You know, there's all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of different options. So I found a way to kind of maneuver things in and out throughout my memoir, where it gives people kind of an idea. Maybe the newcomer needs some information, or, you know, it might refresh some people that have fallen a little complacent and they can take a different look or perspective of stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
towards the end, like I said, I had added some stuff about resources, journaling, and you know, I prayer and meditation. I talk about that and I offer some prayers and what it looks like to be awkward with prayer and how to get connected with yourself and then with your higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And also, of course, I wanted to dive into breaking the stigma. So
Of
I talk a lot
course.
about that. I love that. I love that chapter. I think one of my favorite chapters though is fall 7 times, get up 8, because I'm like the
Mm-hmm.
queen of relapse. And so I want people to know, keep
So
going
we've got
because you can keep going.
all sorts of kings and queens coming on. A few weeks ago, we had the opioid king of Fresno, and then a couple weeks after
Yeah,
that, we had
right.
the meth queen of Saskatoon, and now we have the queen of relapse. So like we're just
Queen of
dripping in
relapse.
royalty. So where can people find you?
I'm at Sober Now on Facebook. Sober dash now.
Mm-hmm.
Sober hyphen now on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Instagram, sober dot so dot now dot what? Sober so now what?
Yeah.
Sober now was taken.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's probably the best places, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And then I hope I'm on Amazon. My book's on Amazon. I just relaunched the print, relaunched the ebook will be following right behind it any day now. The hardback out. We're having it translated into Spanish. It's the first book of a series. I'm going to be writing. The riff forward was written by Gary Chapman, the author of the 5 Love Languages. He's got me. I'm working on a second book that has very much to do about love and connection, and how it's necessary in recovery to love ourselves and to love others.
Mm-hmm.
So keep your eyes peeled for that, and come by and see me at Sober Now. Stay connected with me. I would love to keep up with you guys.
Awesome. All right, Melissa. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your strength and hope with us. All the best wishes with this book and the ones to follow. You ain't seen the last of us. We'll be right out there with you in Facebook land and wherever else the
I
path
love
leads.
it.
And yeah, that's it for now. So take care, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I love y'all. I love you, Hard Knock Socks. Thanks, Donna.
All right, if you're getting something out of what we're doing here tonight, you can find all our audios on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or live and interactive right here on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.